If the events in one's life are like links in a chain, what happens when a link is broken? When it falls to pieces, is it better to just throw it away? What if one of those links is missing from the very beginning? This is the story of such a life. A life that might seem like it's just not worth the trouble.
In the very beginning, what I remember is living over top of a liquor store. Before that, we lived in a row home. I don't remember any of that.
I was very fortunate to have a brother and sister, even though they were much older. My mother didn't care for my sister a whole lot, so she wasn't in the picture very much. My brother was.
And I remember my brother being so much older that it was almost like having a big brother, but an absent brother. And Dad worked at a gas station, or he owned the gas station that was a block away. And it just was not comfortable, and I didn't know why at the time. And we bought a house in Pennsauken, not far from here, that was really nice. But of course my brother got the best room. My brother constantly was, I don't want to say thrown in my face, but that's how I felt. He did this, your brother did that. And he was able to leave a situation that I really didn't know how bad it was then. My mother, I guess she loved me. I don't really know that for sure, because everything was about her. And Mom and Dad fought a lot, and I was kind of stuck in the middle oftentimes. And I just really struggled with a lot of things in life, but didn't know why.
And on Sunday, we ride from Outerard to Karna. And so I asked Rick if he was interested, and of course, he was very interested. And actually, his son is going to be joining us also, so there'll be three of us. West central portion of Ireland. According to the bike tour company, the section that we're going to be riding is one of the most beautiful sections within Ireland. This is really something that I've been looking forward to for many years. And I'm just glad that I have a good friend, someone that I've been riding with for a long time, to share it with me.
That's fine with me.
As I started in elementary school, just had a lot of trouble. And I can remember one thing that just really, I think, set me back was when I went to first grade. I missed the first day, I don't know why. The second day, the teacher had all the names on the board. And she asked everybody to say their name, and I did not see my name. And the reason I didn't see my name was because they had Frederick up there, which is my name. I did not really understand it at the time because everybody called me Rick. And so I said, my name isn't there. And I can remember and I can picture this teacher making fun of me for not knowing my name. She actually invited other children in some way or another to make fun of me. And for the longest time, kids made fun of me because I was stupid and dumb. And as I come to find out later, because of the challenges I have, I did do stupid things and was not able to understand things. But my elementary years, most of it was spent in fear of anybody asking me something and being made fun of and being put in situations that I couldn't comprehend. I can remember overhearing teachers talking about me and why I was so lazy, and being sent to the coat room And I would take some coats off the rack and just lay them on the floor and lay down on other kids' coats and cry myself to sleep. Because I tried. And I wanted it. And I wanted to be able to read the board and do the problems. And I wanted to be able to understand and have the other kids say, yeah, good answer and stuff like that. But I wasn't able to. In junior high, they said maybe he needs glasses because he can't see the board. My eyes were fine. And they never really figured it out. And I begged mom and dad in elementary school to talk to the principal, and they went. And back in those days, and I don't hold any real animosity towards them, but you believe what the teacher said. And I always felt more tolerated than liked.
We'll be riding between 25 and 40 miles a day. Probably take us 6 to 8 hours. We plan to do a lot of stopping and sightseeing along the way. We have no daily schedule other than a starting point and an ending point. So it'll just be fun.
I ended up fighting a lot with all the other kids in the neighborhood, and a lot of that had to do with me not being able to understand what they were saying, what they were doing, what was going on. And of course they made fun of me. Kids do that. But it all led to me believing that I was worthless and that I didn't belong on this planet, and that God must have made a big mistake making me. And I didn't know God. I just heard the term, didn't know what God was all about or anything like that. But throughout my early youth, it was all, I don't want to be here. I don't want to live. I don't want to be in this situation. So I joined the Scouts, and I thought that would help. I thought I'd make friends. I finally got to go on a camping trip. And because we didn't have the kind of money that we needed, they bought me a Army surplus sleeping bag. And it didn't fit in the backpack. It fell apart. I ended up dragging it. And this other scout, I'll take care of it for you. I'll help you with it. And he ended up rolling it up. He was a bigger scout, an older boy. And he carried it for me. But I had a price to pay for that. Didn't realize that. So that night, when we bed down, he climbed into my sleeping bag. And at that point, didn't understand what was going on because I was so young, but ended up being sodomized by this older boy and thinking this is the way the world is. This is all there is to life. I finally got to be something I wanted to be, finally got to do something I wanted to do, and I had to put up with that. But he just shoved something in my mouth and said, don't scream, and if you tell anybody this happened, I'll kill you. And I couldn't tell my neighbors because they didn't think much of me to start with, and I'm sure they would have blamed me. So that really set me back, and I became, I don't know what the word would be, but I didn't want to go anywhere. I didn't want to do anything. And it seemed like everything that I was supposed to do went wrong. And I just grew up hoping that life would end. Thought up several times about how to end it. As a young boy, tried a couple things to see if they would work. One of them was I tried to stab myself and ended up hitting my funny bone on the drawer when I took the knife out of. And of course I dropped the knife, and I said, well, this figures I can't even kill myself, right? One day I tied a rope around my neck and jumped out of a tree, but the rope broke. So, you know, I couldn't even do that right.
Well, there's many reasons to get away and clear your mind, many reasons. I think the number one reason for me to begin this trip was to go with Jerry. But as the trip began to unfold, I started thinking about my heritage, being Irish, and all the things that I had looked forward to, learning about Ireland, the things in the past that had happened that I could take time to think about and get some peace and quiet. Just thinking about God and His beauty, His majesty, and His wonder. Thinking about the creation. Thinking how beautiful we are to Him. Thinking about my relationship with my son and being able to be here with him. Being able to talk to him. The days to come are going to be filled with adventure. The days to come are going to give me a sense of ability and just to be able to see the beauty and majesty of Ireland.
The back needs to go down just a little bit.
Didn't know we were getting that. Are we handy?
I brought my veneers.
Each of you basically have the cue sheet, and then you have the maps. Each of these squares are 10 kilometers.
So today is Father's Day. It's the first day of our Ireland bike trip. We will be starting in Oughterard. We are going to the Quiet Man Bridge because that's a very important place for Rick. So we will be stopping there and then backtracking a little bit.
And throughout high school, a lot of things happened that, were mistakes I made. I couldn't figure out things. I did the wrong thing. I ended up in the wrong place. I tried, so many different things to do the right thing, and it never seemed to be. But when I met Winnie, things got a lot better.
Rick was quiet, but he was also caring and very concerned about others. Wanted to draw people out, but always on a one-on-one basis.
She kept telling me about this boy that was paying no attention to her, and this boy that was this, and this boy that was that, and I just knew. And I asked her, and she said, "Yeah, you're the one." And since that day, we've been together.
So when he responded favorably, I was just very excited, very glad, and thought that we could be happy as a couple.
My attitude changed, my abilities changed a little bit as far as being able to do some things because I had somebody to finally help me.
Yes, I actually did some of his schoolwork. We went to the same high school. I was well thought of by some teachers, and some teachers actually gave him more credit just out of courtesy to me.
But I still had a lot of challenges, and my ability to be with people was getting worse. And we dated, and she had a lot of issues at her house, and I guess finally we just decided to go ahead and get married because I wanted out of my house and she wanted out of her house, and I am so glad now, but it was a big mistake. Because we were 20, we had no idea how to live by ourselves, let alone together. I became very manipulative and very demanding and very controlling. And now that I look back, it was the only thing I knew, and that was my mother. I behaved just like my mother. And she put up with it for a while, but then couldn't put up with it any longer. She wanted nothing to do with me, and I am a fixer. So I just tried to fix it night and day, 24 hours. What can I do? How can I? And I just drove her away. And when I stopped pestering her, when I stopped bothering her, when I stopped smothering her, one day she said, "Okay, I'll come back." So I think we both had some serious issues, and we decided to have a child. So glad we did, but it was a huge mistake. I didn't know how to have a child, and my brain just could not process this thing screaming and yelling, and I would yell at her to get the kid to shut up. It was horrible for her. I can't believe how she was able to put up with me, but I just could not process this thing. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to handle it.
Because of COPD with the headwind, I can't get the air out. I get dizzy when I stop.
Until he was about 2 or so, I had nothing to do with him. I so regret that now, but that's what happened then. And it drove a wedge between her and I. And she tried to protect him, so he was afraid of me. And I gave him some right to be afraid.
My father and I have always had an interesting relationship. You know, I'm sure most fathers and sons have some kind of a strain here or there with their fathers. I was never close to him when I was younger. We had a very tumultuous relationship. I think he was insecure about his abilities to be a good father. He wanted to be. I knew that. Well, I know that now. But at the time, he was I think he was afraid of saying the wrong thing to me. So he didn't say much, and then when he did, it was reactionary. So what it ended up doing is making me afraid to be around my father.
What a true father's thinking. Thank you, honey.
Yep, that's Father's Day. That.
I love you. Love you too, man.
I don't know that Dad didn't try, he just didn't know how. He treated me as he was treated by my grandmother, and that was very strict and very rough. So I just didn't think I belonged. Dad didn't know how to give me any guidance at all. My guidance from Dad was, one day he came into the room and said, well, do you want to go to vocational school or high school? I said, I guess high school. And he said, okay. That was it.
Great. So after the football pitch is the second house on your left.
Fantastic.
Yeah, just right over there. Just
Thank
keep
you,
going
sir.
straight. No problem, guys.
Father's Day ride, very cool.
Appreciate you being here, honey.
My pleasure, Dad.
I just began to hate everything. I went from one job to the next, and I couldn't really keep a job, and I didn't know what I wanted to do, and it was just constant, day in and day out, pain. And I spent night and day thinking about ways to end my life. And if it was a really good day, it would be a quick death. If it was a bad day, it would be a slow, painful death. The pain reached a point that suicide seems so much better. That's the day I decided that was it. She wasn't here, she didn't care, nobody loved me, I hated everything, and this is where I see God changing my life. I had a dog, and the dog's name was King. And King was laying on the bed, and I was pacing back and forth upstairs, trying to figure out which way I was going to do it, because that was the day. There was no question about it. And when I walked in, King looked up at me. And when he looked up at me, I saw love. I saw love in his eyes. And I said, if he loves me, then maybe I am worth something. And I just totally collapsed in tears and just laid there, I don't know how long, with the dog, bawling my eyes out. And that's when God said, I love you.
We ask for good weather today, Father, and the wind be at our backs. Allow us to see the beauty and majesty of this island, and just ask you, Lord, to keep everybody safe. See us to our destination. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen.
I've always been looking for some identity, because I didn't really have one. And when I met Winnie, my identity started to become us. But being who I was at the time, I always wanted what I wanted, when I wanted it, and how I wanted it. And I really enjoyed the Salem girl. You'd have to be pretty old to know who the Salem girl was, but she was the girl that they used to sell Salem cigarettes. Very sexy, and she smoked very sexy, and I enjoyed that. I was a young, healthy male, and I would say that sex was probably 95% of my daily thoughts. And this girl just was really cool. So when Winnie and I were dating, I said, well, how about you try that? I bet you look even sexier than her, and she did. So we smoked. But as time went on, the cigarettes became much more than the nicotine habit. What I found as I continued in life is they became my best friend. And I became psychologically addicted more so than physically addicted. There was things missing, and I didn't understand what they were. But I still thought, well, if I eat enough and smoke enough, maybe God will take me. And I think that was a way of thinking maybe I'll kill myself smoking and eating, and therefore it's not really suicide. So I smoked and ate as much as I could. And if God took me, yay, it was still over. But my knees were getting bad. My joints were starting to hurt. I couldn't breathe very well. I wasn't active at all physically. Everything was a struggle.
Well, according to Kara or June, I don't know which one, they did it and found our great-great-great-grandfather, whoever it was, came from Ireland, left his family in New York to try to make money out west, and became a cook for one of the outlaws.
Yeah, that's you told me about that before, and Kara was embarrassed about it, right?
Yeah. I was always afraid that if I had it done, I wouldn't be as Irish as I wanted to be.
And my nephew called, and he said, I went to sell, he was selling Yellow Page ads, to this guy, and he has a elevator business, but he needs somebody to help him with sandblasting. And at this time, I was not leaving my house. I could not leave. I have agoraphobia, however the pronunciation really goes, but I couldn't even go to a mall. So I summoned the courage. I called this guy, and he said, well, come over to Philly, and we'll talk about it. And I was able to do that, but I sat in the car for I don't know how long before I could even knock on the door. Finally knocked on the door and went in. I met this guy, and he was a great guy, real nice guy. Talked about the sandblasting business and all this other stuff. And I started to get encouraged because I was mechanically inclined and I could probably do this. And it was by myself, and I'm under a hood. Nobody's going to bother me. Nobody wants to get near me. And so I said, okay, let's, go to the next step. He said, by the way, a bunch of us businessmen are meeting tonight, and I'd like you to come and meet some of my business associates. I don't want to go. And he gave me the hotel, sat through this meeting, and then at the end of the meeting, he announced that it's Amway. I was furious, because I knew everything there was to know about Amway. My mom did it. He said, well, why don't you just come across the street? We're going to go have something. And my dad was a Mercedes service manager, so I drove an old Mercedes, and of course they said, well, you can get a Mercedes. And I said, I don't need a Mercedes, I have one, because I was so angry. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to go just to see. And the way the people talk to each other, and the fact that it was somebody's birthday, and the fact that for the first time I saw positive. And he said, let me give you some stuff. I said, well, I can't do this. I have to be around people. And I rode home in tears. And I said, I don't want to do Amway, but for the first time in my life, somebody treated me nice. I want that. And I came home and I told Winnie, and I said, I don't want to do this, but I want to be with these people. They're nice. So, I got with Ed and we did the things we were supposed to do. In the meantime, we did some sandblasting together. And then there was a rally in Virginia Beach, and he said, you really need to go. And I said, okay. Wasn't thinking of anything but going with him and being part of a couple guys that were real positive. And we get there, and it's an entire convention center filled with people. And I went in and I sat down, and he said, well, let's go up there. I said, no, I really need to sit here. And I sat there a few minutes, and I couldn't take it anymore. Had a panic attack, started getting sick to my stomach, sweating and all this. Ran out, was able to compose myself and come back in and stand at the back door. When we got back to the hotel, I ran down to the beach and found some secluded spot and just sat there and crying my eyes out, because I finally had something that I believed in but couldn't do it. And he finally found me and helped me through it. And I went back the next day, and he stood with me at the door and worked out pretty well. I came home, told Winnie, and I felt better than I'd ever felt in my life. Just about being positive, about changing things. On Sunday morning, they had a band play Christian music, and then somebody would speak and all that. And I enjoyed the bands. I don't like music because I can't really follow it. My brain processes it later than the actual music is, so I really can't understand. But I enjoyed it. And this one Sunday, I went to get closer, and my upline, the people that were above me, that are already down there, thought I was coming for the invitation. So they come running out from behind the curtain, so excited, hugging me and loving on me, and just so happy that I was going to come for the invitation to accept Christ. I had no idea really at that point who Christ was. I'd heard things, but I was just there for the music. But I said, maybe I ought to think about it. And I came home and I said, and I can remember the exact words that I said to Winnie, I don't know, nothing else works. Maybe I'll try this God thing. need to start worshiping. And I said, I can't do that. I don't leave the house. And he said, well, come to Wednesday night, and there's only a few people there. And I said, if you wait for me and help me get in there, I can possibly try it. So Rick, Winnie, and I are driving down the road, and I know the exact spot it happened. It started pouring rain. And I looked at Winnie and said, well, I guess I'm safe now, because there's no way he's going to be out there. We'll get there. He's not there. We'll turn around and leave. She said, okay, that's fine. We get there, and he's standing out there soaking wet. And I said, I don't believe you're out here. He said, I told you I'd be. I said, okay, well then I guess I got to go in, don't I? And the bottom line to that is it took us almost the whole time of the Wednesday night service for me to get down the steps and get in, and he stayed with me the whole time. And several things happened there, but the thing I learned there is that through that particular church, there was love. And then they started telling me about this guy, Jesus, that loved us enough to go to the cross for our sins. And I said, wow, man.
One who speaks of me. Christ in every eye that sees me. Christ in every ear that hears me. I arise today through the mighty strength of the Lord of creation.
I think he sees an opportunity for a free meal.
Yes.
So today we're going to be starting in Clifton. We're going to be going west and then turning north around the 12 Bends National Park. As we come around the park, we're going to be stopping at Kylemore Abbey, and then we'll be doubling back and going into Lannon. So it should be about a 39-mile ride. It's beautiful today, the sun's out. Quite a difference from yesterday. I guess in a lot of ways, Rick is a father figure to me. He's also a spiritual advisor and mentor. really learned a lot from him about patience and forgiveness.
Hello. That's a sheep. That's a sheep. Hello, sheepies. I don't know why God has put Jerry and I together. Personality-wise, I'm a free spirit, fly by the seat of my pants. Jerry has to have everything planned, in order, and it has to go the way he's planned it. There's been a few times where I ask for change and it just throws him out of, he's just spinning off the planet because change is not something he likes. But I would say that I'm one of the few people that he would change things for.
I think our relationship is very symbiotic. You know, he's not a good planner, doesn't read maps well. That's one of my strong points. And although I like to be alone a lot, trips like this are really more enjoyable if you have someone to share them with. So he gets to go on rides that he wouldn't even dream about going on by himself. I get to have somebody with me on rides that, you know, I would probably do by myself but not enjoy anywhere near as much. So it's really been good for both of us. It really has.
He is a tremendous inspiration to me because of his perseverance with my inabilities. A lot of the things that we do together, he is so much better at. But he's willing to persevere with my disabilities in those things, and the things that he does much better because he sees in me a never quit attitude. And he's told me more than once, he said, I watch you pedal and I want so much to be able to give you strength. I want so much to help you that the struggle that you endure trying to ride the rides we do, it just inspires me so much to try to do better. And his perseverance with me inspires me.
The hours that we spend together on these summer rides, we get to talk about things that we probably wouldn't talk about. Spiritual, personal, relational, we've talked about everything and anything. And I probably know more about him and he about me, maybe even than our wives.
When I started reading the scriptures, I could only read short bursts and a few words, and then I couldn't remember what I read. So I had to write down every day. I had to write the date. And I read that Bible for 3 or 4 years, and all the dates are in there of when I read that, and I would go back and say, did I read this yesterday? And I can remember when I first started trying to read the scriptures, literally hitting myself in the head with the Bible because I wasn't understanding it. And yelling at God, if you want me to know the scriptures, I have to be able to read. And I can read the scriptures, but only so long, and then I start to lose focus. But He has placed them in my heart. I know the scripture well enough to do what God needs me to do.
I didn't understand my father, but now that I see him as a different person, I understand his past a little bit better. So I think he was insecure and didn't know himself. And now I see him as a man who understands his capabilities and limitations very, very well. If a situation arises or a moment arises that he knows he's incapable of handling or dealing with or excelling at, he will exculpate himself from that situation. If there's something that he's good at, he will step right up.
And when I look back, I said, if I had scripted my life, it would have never looked like it did. If I was able to write my story before it happened, it would all be wonderful and positive. But if it had all been wonderful and positive and I'd never been uncomfortable, I wouldn't have grown. I said, maybe I need to find out what's wrong with me. And I was able to get in touch with a clinical psychologist in Philly. I went to see him, and he said, okay, we need to give you a test. And I believe it's a 9-hour test. They give you 2 bathroom breaks and a snack, because they want to have you under some duress at a point in time. And after the test was completed, I went back, and he said yes. And only a portion of one side of my brain works properly, and I have severe dyslexia. So words don't make sense. My brain also reads words that it wants it to be, not what it actually is. So if I read something, it could be abundant, but my brain wants it to be applesauce. It'll read applesauce instead of abundant. There are times I read things that make absolutely no sense whatsoever. And he said that these are your issues.
At that moment, I understood that it wasn't me. And I would say within the next couple of hours to the next day, it was like the weight of the world was lifted from my shoulders. And I know when he still didn't agree, she argued with the guy that if I worked harder and tried, I could do it. And he just flat out told her, no, you're wrong. He can't. If he was 20 years younger, we could work with him to try to help him. But at his age, he's already learned how to deal with it. I knew how to deal with it, but now that I knew that it wasn't me, because all my teachers have told me I was lazy and stupid. My friends, even church people, accused me of being lazy and not being willing to do the things that I had to do. Had great ideas, and my brain processes ideas and comes up with these ideas, putting them into action. When I had my businesses, I could do it by my hands or I could do it by my head, but I couldn't do both. I can't seem to get what's in my head to my hands. I can't tell you, I just can't even put into words the feeling of euphoria that it wasn't me.
We thank you for your mercy, for your grace. We thank you for the hope that we share. And Father, we pray that you will continue to watch over us as we ride, that you will help us to be good servants and good at doing your will and spreading your word. And Father, we make this prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. And that's where I said, whatever disability this really is, now it's your job. I got to put this in your hands because I want to use it to serve you. However I can best serve you with the tools that you've given me, that's what I want. Because God has given me some tremendous gifts. Tremendous gifts. So the challenges don't matter so much. And those people that labeled me,
outstanding, Mr. Jerry.
I forgive them.
You should be Lenon right up here.
The hurt and name calling and all those things, they didn't know any better. The teachers didn't know any better, the principal didn't know any better, and my parents didn't know any better.
Oh, there he is. There he is. So Rick, for like 90 seconds, talk to me about your desire to do 100 centuries. My desire to do 100 centuries first started when my brother took me on a Bike Virginia trip. And I've always been a goal setter.
Having lost my weight and quit smoking, I was looking for another goal. I did 100 miles on Bike Virginia with my brother and said, hey, I really like that. I think I'll do 100 of them.
One day, I was sitting there having a cigarette, and I said, I think what it is I'm going to do, I'm going to finish this cigarette, and then I'll come in. And at that point, God said to me, are the cigarettes more important than I am? And I like to use the expression, God swings a 2x4. That was a 4x4. And it just hit me so hard that I said, well, then I got to do something about it. But I had prayed for years to have him help me quit. And I had prayed for the strength, and I had prayed for the understanding, and I had prayed to the point where I said, okay, well, maybe you don't want me to quit. Well, he just told me he did. But I have to have a plan. And that plan was to take very small steps. And in those small steps, I was able to cope with fear, the fear of giving them up, and the knowledge that I could. Because I could stop smoking 3 different brands and go down to 2. I could stop smoking 2 different lengths and go to 1. So as I came up with this plan, it seemed doable. And I did that. And I set a date that would be the final end to it. And I had to trust that God would take care of it. Winnie needed to quit because it was leaching the calcium from her bones, and she was starting to deal with osteoporosis, so we decided to quit together. But I knew that it would cause me to gain more weight. I was already 270 or more. And I said, okay, well, I can take care of the weight once I get done the smoking. So we did the process. And New Year's Day, 2000, I got up, had my last cigarette, threw the rest in the toilet when he said, I'm not having any at all. And that was it. That day I went to Sports Authority. And I can remember it was New Year's Day and they were open and walking around because somebody had given me a big punching bag because I knew I was going to need to beat something. And I bought the gloves, and that day was horrendous. Just one of the most painful days I can remember. And I came home with the boxing gloves, and I just went into the back room, and I beat that bag, and I beat that bag, and I beat that bag. And that's what I look forward to every day, was coming home to beat that bag. And eat. And then I found Wawa straws. As long as I was able to chew on Wawa straws, I had some satisfaction. So you didn't see me during those 10 months without straws in my mouth.
See the green buoy out there?
And then one day, I said, okay, hon, it's time to lose weight. Called Weight Watchers, because that was the second part of my plan. My plan was to quit smoking, the second year lose weight, the third year get in shape. And I set that plan in motion. And at one point, I don't know if I told my brother or he asked me, or I don't know what happened, but I said I'd quit smoking. And he was so excited that he said, if you stay off the cigarettes and lose your weight, I'll take you cross country.
He got up to about 280, 290 pounds. And I said, gee, bro, it's time that we do things together. I said, I really want you to bike with me, but you're too big. You just can't do what I do.
Because my brother and I had that relationship where I always went to him, but he never had a lot of time for me because he had 5 kids. So this was his way of saying, okay, I'm going to give you 52 days.
So I think that was incentive for him. So this is not easy. He went to Weight Watchers and he got down to about 185. And I said, I promise you then that someday I'll take you cross country on a bicycle.
I set that plan in motion, quit the smoking. 10 months later, it took me 10 months to give up the cigarettes. And then we started with Weight Watchers. But I had to walk into a room full of people. And still suffering from that panic, I found a spot that was right next to the bathroom. And when I started to have a panic attack, I jump up and run into the bathroom. And when I went to Weight Watchers, because of my personality, my leader asked me a question. I don't remember what it was. I wish now I had written it down. And I said to her, I am not here to lose weight. And she said, but this is Weight Watchers. That's what we do. I said, no, it's not. I've read your articles. You help people change their life. I said, if you help me make the changes I need to make in my lifestyle, then the weight will come off. I don't care what the scale says. I don't care what every week means. You help me change. And because I approached it that way, I didn't have as much anxiety as most people do about weight loss because I didn't diet. I didn't want to do it more than once. I wanted to learn how to live thin while I was getting there. When I first started with my weight loss, I couldn't walk more than about 15, 20 steps because my muscles in my legs had atrophied so bad that I hobbled. I had to hold on to things and I waddled around. So my very first goal in activity was to walk from my side door to the back door, 26 steps, because I counted them. And once my muscles started to get a little stronger, I could walk from the front door to the back door. And then I went from the street to the back door. And then I walked over to the next door neighbor's house and back. And I had cut grass and done other things, but it was really uncomfortable. But now my legs and my muscles were starting to get stronger. And I knew that if I did that, and I got the weight off, my brother would take me cross country. And he had done it several times. He was 72 at the point he said he would take me. So we set out to do that. I had lost about 30 pounds when I got the Schwinn Cruiser out of the garage. Blew up the tires, hoping they wouldn't hold air. But when they held air, I was pretty disappointed. And I rode down to the end of the block. Not much of a problem until I turned around and came back. My legs burnt so bad, my lungs were burning, and I just couldn't go any further. But because I had learned through the quitting the smoking and the losing the weight that I had so far, that if I did small steps, I could do it. So what I did was mark in the street where I had to stop and walk home. The next day, my goal was not to get home. It was to turn that crank one more time than I did yesterday. And then the day after that was one more time, and the day after that was one more time. So now when I do a 100-mile ride, it's one crank at a time. No matter what it is I do, I try to do it one crank at a time.
Welcome to the 38th Annual Sea Shore Ride. This event is so important for people living within an hour. There are more than 1
Today I'm riding my 75th century out of my goal, which was 100. Here in New Jersey on a beautiful day, halfway through the Century Loop. Two folks at church I ride the MS ride for, Howard Mansdorfer, who's had MS for a number of years, and Vinod Netla, who was just recently diagnosed a year or so ago.
In the time it takes to know, in the space of every word, in the calling of your name from the highest mountain, in the memory of the earth, in a corner of the sky, in the moment of your life where you stand forever.
I'm proud of him, first of all, knowing where he was and how far he's come. I think that it's extremely important. I think that his passion for his church and the things that he does for other people, without question.
My dad is wonderful with assessing a situation and providing good advice as to how to proceed or to how to not proceed. So, I always look to him for that because he has a lot of innate natural wisdom.
By the Lord coming into his life, there have been remarkable changes. So he's a bit of a living illustration, and he doesn't trumpet that a lot. When people talk to him and know a little bit about his background, they realize this is what the Lord has done for him. I wonder what the Lord could do for me.
It's a blessing that I went through all those things because it's made me who I am today. And it's given me the reliance on God.
To me, he is a big part of my life because Rick is, he's like a father to me. My family isn't exactly stable. My father hasn't always been around.
He originally tells us that he didn't really enjoy working with kids early on, but then he decided to step out of his comfort zone and start working with some of the kids.
That kind of sums up his spirit about things. He does things that he's afraid to do, but he doesn't do them alone. He asks for prayers. As it turns out, years later, our teen group is our strongest group.
We're going to go up front and sit up front.
Almost all of them can trace it back to him. He took my request to teach, and he turned it into a ministry.
Now, I'm not just thinking something, I'm developing my own belief.
But it was really scary because, you're in front of the whole congregation, people you've known your whole life, and you don't know, you've never done this before, you don't know how you'll do. But he helped us through it. Something that he taught me before I first preached was the verse, "Don't let anybody look down on you because you're young."
I feel like he's taken me in and he's been teaching me a lot, like what a father would do for his son. Being up there and being able to speak for him and show the people how he's built us.
No, he's someone that was just like all of us. He's a relatable sort of greatness.
And wherever you are, it's okay. Stop beating yourself up if you're not where you want to be. You can get there. So what I want you to think about is where you are today and what is the next step.
When I see him, Mr. Rick, give me a hug, and he gives me this big hug, and sometimes he lifts me off the ground. So he says, "Hi, you make my day, Elizabeth," and that makes my day that he says that.
He's got a kind of a grandfatherly vibe going. He's suffered a lot, and people trust someone who's suffered a lot.
Wow, what a sight.
The rhythm of your soul, be the lover of your dreams, be the sky above you, lighting up the way.
Whatever your disability is, the first thing you need to ask yourself is how can I serve God with my abilities, not feel sorry because I have disabilities. if I can reach that hand out to somebody who's ready to jump out of a tree with a rope around their neck, if I say anything that changes a life, it was worth all these hours I spent.
Giver of the song, be the moon against the night, be the sweet salvation echoing light.
All I'm looking for in this world is to know that I made a difference.
A dream without a sound, going ever onward.
My bicycle chain is held together with a master link. If I don't have a master link, the chain doesn't work. When I think about my life, the master link is Jesus Christ. Without Jesus Christ, my life doesn't work. I'd just like to let everybody know that no matter what your circumstances are, you are loved.